Oh my gosh.
I can't see it very well, hon.
I think we've all done it. Get to our spot, but find getting in isn't easy. Stick around, we'll show you what happens later on. But first, allow us to show you why you might want to come up here in the first place. Just 50 miles from San Diego, Mount Laguna is a hidden gem offering untouched wilderness and dramatically contrasting landscapes. Let's get on the road. We leave our home in the foothills of San Diego. Although it's the middle of winter, you would never know it from this scene. Unlike many, we're not fleeing the snow and cold. Instead, we're embracing them. Our journey takes us to the nearby mountains in search of winter's chill, a deliberate quest to immerse ourselves in the winter weather. The anticipation builds as we prepare our RV for another trip. Every packed item, every planned route is a step closer to adventure. This ritual amplifies our excitement, and with the engine start, we're not just embarking on a trip, but diving into a sea of new experiences, ready to forge lasting memories on the open road. Now, with that being said, we don't overplan our trips. There is still spontaneity, but based on my work situation, there has to be some level of planning. Share your style with us in the comments. Are you a meticulous planner or an impromptu adventurer? Earlier this week, there was talk of snow in the local mountains, but the forecast seemed to have changed. We passed through the quaint town of Julian, once a gold mining town. Now they mostly mine tourists. It's a fun place to stop and explore when not too crowded. We like to drop in the Julian Beer Company. They have great food and drink. But not today. We're headed straight up to the campground, hoping to get in early enough to do a short hike before dinner. Laguna Campground is accessed via Sunrise Highway. You can get to it from the north as we're doing here, or from the south, which is how we're going to be exiting. Sunrise Highway is a National Forest Scenic Byway. That should give you some understanding of its beauty. There are a few tight turns along the route, but nothing too bad. The 79, which leads here, has tighter turns. Sunrise Highway earns its name by following the mountain crest, offering sweeping views of the Anza-Borrego Desert to the east. From up here, you can definitely get a head start on the sunrise, if you happen to be an early riser.
We're up about 6,000 feet now, and parts of that are right down at sea level, so. Now, normally, we have not found there to be staff, at least in the winter time here. I haven't seen anybody checking anybody in.
Feet, you will arrive at your destination.
Currently, Laguna Campground charges $35 per night for dry camping, which may seem high, but options are limited for true forest camping in this area.
I think that's the group campground down there. I think the Meadow Loop's this way, but let's see. Does that say Meadow Loop? I didn't know if it meant Meadow Loop was this way and Prado was this way. There's a group campground down here too. And we are the very first campsite along here. Hopefully it won't be hard to get into. It looked like it should be easy. It's one way.
Note how narrow the road is here, and it has posts lining it so you can't take a wide turn. That's good for the forest, but not so good for attempting to park. This is us to the left. We reserved Site 1 because it has a large clearing next to it, which we thought would be good for Starlink. It's hard to tell from the recreation.gov site how steep the angle of the pad is to the road. This becomes critical when your access road is as narrow as this one is.
How are we doing on that pole?
There's not a lot of room to swing the truck's front end out on this narrow road.
I can't see it very well, hon.
Now I have to admit, we spend most of our time boondocking, so backing into narrow spots is not a strength of mine.
Is there going to be room for the slide out?
But once you do get in, the pad is paved and level and the sites are well spaced out.
How far back you want to go?
Well, it is beautiful, but not exactly wintry up here either. Though at 6,000 feet altitude, the overnight temperatures will freeze. There are a few other campers here. It's maybe 20% occupied.
Okay, so we have kind of an unusual situation with our stabilizer jacks in the rear. Our grade at our driveway where we park this thing is pretty steep, and these would drag if I left them on. So on Amazon I found these little quick release plates for these. So you just mount the receptacle for these up on the base of the where the stabilizers mount, and then there's a receiver plate here. That's the receiver, and this is the attachment plate. Works out pretty well. These guys can use a little grease, but you just slide this in to the receiving plate here, and put the pins back in so they don't go anywhere. And once we get this done, we tend to not take these out afterwards until we get back home and need to park it. But it works like that. It's pretty straightforward. Yep, not room for that jack. So anyhow, if we'd have caught that earlier, we'd have moved forward about 6 or 7 inches.
We selected this site based on the clearing next to it, and that ended up working well for Starlink. There's no cell service up here at all that we're aware of.
Well, here we are. We're going to take a little walk. Check out the meadow.
Situated in Cleveland National Forest, Laguna Campground offers easy access to numerous woodland trails. Whether you prefer a brief stroll or an extended trek, there's a path for every preference. The Pacific Crest Trail passes very close by here, and you can walk along that too if you're so inclined. While this meadow blossoms with beauty in spring and summer, it succumbs to frostbite in the winter. Historically, this area has been used for grazing livestock, especially cattle, due to its lush, grassy landscape, which is conducive to grazing. The practice dates back to when the region was part of the Spanish land grants and continued as the area evolved through different phases of land use and ownership. Despite its use for grazing, efforts have been made to preserve the natural habitat and maintain the ecological balance of the area.
Guess we know which way is the north side of this tree. We are on the Big Laguna Trail.
The trail system here is well marked, with a labyrinth of trails crisscrossing the region. After you pass through the meadow, you come to a more wooded section which has its own beauty. As we are discovering, hiking here in the wintertime on a weekday afternoon is just about perfect. There's almost no one else around.
Let's see what the sign says here. A lot of things, including bicycles, but motor vehicles and motorized equipment are not allowed.
They have a boardwalk built up on the wettest part of the trail, which is probably very helpful in the springtime. There are a few small lakes, more like ponds, scattered throughout the area. This one's named Big Laguna Lake. This whole area was historically inhabited by Native American tribes, most notably the Kumeyaay people. They have lived in this region for at least 12,000 years. If you explore around, you can find some pretty well preserved artifacts of their prior living spaces. The Kumeyaay used to practice low-intensity controlled burns in this area, burning old, dead vegetation to encourage the growth of new, tender shoots that attract deer and other herbivores. This practice also reduced wildfire risk. By regularly burning small areas, the Kumeyaay reduced the buildup of fuel, which helped prevent larger, more destructive wildfires. And finally, the controlled burns made collection of acorns, a critical staple for these people, much easier. The Kumeyaay's use of fire as a land management tool was based on their deep understanding of the environment and the ecological processes that sustained their way of life. Although it took us an hour to drive up here, if we just flew about 20 miles into the sunset, we'd be passing over our house. For being so close to the San Diego metro area, the Mount Laguna area offers a stark contrast to the sandy beaches one tends to associate with the region. This evening's walk is abbreviated, just enough to whet our appetites. There's not enough sunlight left for us to fully enjoy the area. As we observe the numerous ducks that have migrated here from the north to escape the cold, it reminds us of our fellow RVers who have also left harsh winters of their home states to bask in the milder weather. But I think the ducks like it a bit cooler. This is not exactly a warm area in the winter. I guess it's all relative, though. There was a good amount of water in the meadow, and we were concerned our trail was going to turn into a marsh. But it only got a little damp. Amidst the tranquil, predominantly flat expanse of this meadow, nature has left us a few intriguing surprises. Dotting the area are distinct gatherings of boulders, creating eye-catching focal points that break up the otherwise consistent terrain. And even more intriguing, these two boulders look like they were hand-placed. It always fascinates me how nature constructs these scenes. The presence of so much water in the meadow is a rare treat, especially for those accustomed to visiting later in the season when the landscape is typically drier. The standing water creates an enchanting mirror-like effect, reflecting the surrounding beauty and adding an extra layer of visual interest to the already stunning scenery. It's moments like these that remind us of the ever-changing nature of the great outdoors. There's a pretty good facility here. You can see all these open spots. And, oh man, I left my stupid side door open. Look at that. This is a good rookie mistake to avoid, leaving your bay door open when you leave your trailer. As has become our tradition on the first night out, we grilled steaks. Tonight we're featuring USDA Prime Top Sirloin, compliments of Costco. And to keep dang happy, we're grilling up a jalapeno too. One of our favorite veggie dishes to accompany steaks is Brussels sprouts. You can cook these up so many different ways. Tonight we're going simple.
Melt some butter on them and sprinkle a little bit of salt. Like that.
And we are enjoying tonight's dinner with a little Hello Bella from the local winery Turtle Rock Ridge. Maybe the best part of having steak for dinner is having steak and eggs the next morning for breakfast, especially with the size steaks Costco cuts. After a hearty breakfast like that, we're ready to explore the area. We're going to put the drone to work today, showing off a view of these mountains you may not have seen. Thousands of feet below us lies the Anza-Borrego Desert. This is California's largest state park and the second largest park in the contiguous United States. Alaska apparently has some whoppers. And hidden beneath our feet lies a true gem for hiking enthusiasts, the legendary Pacific Crest Trail. We're currently standing near the southern terminus of this iconic 2,600-mile trail, which stretches all the way from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. To be precise, we're just about 50 miles north of where the trail kicks off in Campo, California, at the Mexican border fence. This mountain range is known as the Laguna Mountains, and it is part of the broader Peninsular Range of mountains that runs over 900 miles south to the tip of Baja. In turn, the Peninsular Range is part of the North American Pacific Coast Range, which spans all the way up to Alaska. You've heard of a few other ranges in the Pacific Coast Range, such as the Cascades and the Sierra Nevada. The coastal range's distinguishing characteristic is that its mountains orient from northwest to southeast, whereas the other ranges are predominantly north-south. This orientation is a result of the complex tectonic history of the region, influenced by the interaction between the North American and Pacific plates along the San Andreas Fault System. You know, that fault that's going to be blamed when California falls off into the Pacific. Okay, enough geology for today. Although the Laguna Mountains may not appear as imposing as the famous Sierra Nevada range, their rugged terrain posed a formidable challenge for early settlers attempting to cross. Those settlers faced a daunting journey that required careful planning and timing. To traverse the scorching Colorado desert, they had to embark during the cooler months of winter or early spring, when the heat was less intense and water sources were more likely to be available. However, this meant reaching the Laguna Mountains just as the coldest weather hit, with snow and ice making the steep, rugged trails even more treacherous. As we take in these stunning views, it's hard not to appreciate the modern roads and vehicles that make our journey so much easier than it was for those early settlers. Now let's go find a place where we can view the west side of these mountains. We will drive to the south towards Interstate 8. There are a number of pullouts on Sunrise Highway, and I'm sure we'll find something. This spot looks good, and there's nobody here to get bothered by the drone either. Looking westward, we see more vegetation in the landscape, and on a clear day, we might be able to see the ocean, which is about 50 or so miles away. The Peninsular Ranges significantly influence the climatic differences between San Diego and the desert regions to the east. These mountains enhance the contrast by forcing moist ocean air to rise and cool, resulting in higher rainfall on the coastal side, while creating a rain shadow effect that intensifies the arid conditions in the eastern deserts. The Laguna Mountains do present a number of good boondocking options. However, almost all are more suited to smaller vehicles, truck campers or vans. You just need to make sure you are outside the Laguna Mountain Recreation Area, which is managed by the Forest Service. This is the area that includes the developed campsites such as the one we are staying at. Let's head back to camp now. It's been a really nice day. Breakfast burritos. We don't have a long drive to our next destination. It's only about 200 miles, so we can start off with a leisurely breakfast.
What did you cook today?
Breakfast time. We're having sort of breakfast burrito type stuff. Self-made breakfast burritos. Self-rolled, I should say. There's our tortillas. Rained a little bit last night, which was a little surprising. Fortunately, we didn't have much outside. We did have the chairs out there, but they'll dry out. Shoes were brought in, fortunately.
Now, let's see if we have as much difficulty getting out of here as we did getting in. The wide-angle camera makes this look a little easier than it actually is. Our truck has that 360-degree camera view feature, and I can tell you at times like this, that's a godsend. From this side, everything looks okay, but let's take a look at the other side, shall we?
Stop.
We love that Valterra, but it does stick out a little bit, perhaps a bit too much for this site.
Maybe you should take this thing off.
I didn't have to remove the whole thing, just the cap, fortunately. You can tell from how the top of this post is chewed up a bit. We're not the only ones that have had an issue here. At least if we hit that Valterra, it's a lot easier to replace than just about anything else on the RV. Unless, of course, it brings the plumbing system with it. What's your worst RV parking story? Leave us a comment down below. Well, we made it out intact, and now we continue heading south towards the I-8, which we will take east into the desert. As we leave the Laguna Mountains behind and make our way towards the desert, it's a perfect time to reflect on the incredible journey we've had so far. From the challenges we faced at the campsite to the outstanding hiking trails and the stunning vistas we've enjoyed along Sunrise Highway, this stop, though brief, has not disappointed. If you are in the region, we highly recommend checking this area out. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to let us know, and subscribe to our channel to help us continue to produce content like this. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next destination.